80-90% of people on chain aren't very good. We want Mode to be the chain where like agents are doing all the transactions.
Is a bit abstract to like the average normie, but you guys are very convicted in this idea of like AI agents eating the world.
It's not like an agent is suddenly going to outperform like the best hedge fund, but it probably will do better than like most people. And that's like a pretty good start.
Are these guys narrative chasers? Are you guys bandwagoners?
People who say stuff is sentient, that's realistically not going to happen from like a random blockchain project.
Hey, we'll get right back to the podcast, but first I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Vertex Protocol. Vertex is a cutting-edge decentralized perp exchange that brings you the best of both worlds. With its lightning-fast order book model, Vertex offers precise price discovery and minimal slippage. Take advantage of cross-margin trading to optimize your capital and trade the most popular assets like Pepe, Doge, WIF, Memecoin, Eigenlayer, and more, all with leverage. So why wait? Dive into decentralized trading today. Visit vertexprotocol.com to learn more. Trade smarter, trade with Vertex.
Here today we've got my friend and colleague in the crypto space, James Ross. We've known each other for a little while now, and I've actually interviewed him before. But James, tell us who you are and what you do.
So yeah, I'm founder of Mode, which is an L2 ecosystem building at the intersection of DeFi and AI, which we're now calling DeFi AI. And yeah, I've been focused on building in DeFi and Ethereum ecosystem for like 6 years, trading, investing. So yeah, we met like, I don't know when we met. We started speaking a few years back, I think. Mm-hmm. But we met like at some conferences and yeah, always kept up with the epic stuff you're building on the show. So happy to be back here.
Right. Yeah. Mode originally started, as more of a DeFi focused chain. And, to be 100% transparent, you guys were having a little bit of trouble kind of gaining traction. So tell me about that moment and that timeline, and then when you guys started to see this kind of pivot to DeFi.
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched Mode exactly 1 year ago, at the end of January 2024. And we, like the goal of Mode was to build like the most innovative things within DeFi and support that within our ecosystem. And so we went pretty heavy on supporting restaking assets or like yield bearing assets, as that was like the big trend, the big meta at the time. So we ended up growing quite fast from launch. We went from like 0 to like 700 million TVL, like a very short amount of time. We had like a pretty in-depth like point system with a dashboard where like every single transaction on chain was incentivized. And yeah, that was working really well in the good market. However, when the market started to turn, volumes dropped off. In like May, we launched our token. We saw a lot of TVL leave. This restaking narrative kind of died off a little bit. This yield-bearing asset narrative died off a little bit. And yeah, we spent a lot of time kind of thinking like, what is like the most innovative stuff we can be doing right now? What's the most interesting stuff in DeFi we can be doing? And like, what's our vision going to be for like the next few years? And like a lot of our team had spent a lot of time working in AI previously. I previously had like a fintech AI company like 10 years ago. And so, yeah, we looked at like, we've been watching the agent space. One of like the kind of early ideas is we wanted to get agents live on Mode. Been looking at how the agent space been evolving. We were speaking to a lot more AI teams. And yeah, 3-4 months ago, we went really hard. We made like 6 or 7 like investments or grants from the foundation into different builders. We launched an accelerator, which has demo day coming up. We had 9 teams in the accelerator. We also started running hackathons, and we supported like a load of projects to get their first agents live on Mode. So we had teams like Giza who launched Armor, which is a stablecoin agent, about a month ago. And also we worked quite closely with L2s or L2s to get one of the first like on-chain trading agents live on Mode. So we really just went hard into what we were initially calling AI-fi. but now it seems to be like DeFi AI.
Hmm.
But yeah, we really just focused on like supporting as many builders as we could and really pushing them to like just get agents live. And that's like not like immediately rush to put like millions and millions of dollars into these agents. That's like scale them up slowly together, learn as we go. And yeah, now there's like a pretty solid ecosystem of agents on Mode. We have like hundreds more launching in the coming weeks. So yeah, it's a great time, and the market seems to be loving this new narrative, which is cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, to kind of observe the L2 space, right? Like L2 was super hot. Arbitrum,
Hmm.
Optimism were taking off. I remember in 2023, while Solana was trading at like $8. And it was kind of the landscape was very, very different not that long ago. And now it feels like the L2 space is searching for a soul, and you guys are kind of one of the only L2s that kind of feels like has a strong foothold and strong kind of narrative to work off of. What do you think is plaguing the L2 space, and how have you guys kind of been able to overcome that in a way that other L2s haven't?
Yeah, I think that like being a generalized chain has just got extremely hard because it's very competitive now, like within the L2 space.
Right.
Um, and even chains like Base still focus on like certain verticals. Like they focus heavily on like consumer experience, dev experience, um, and like they're looking very much at like consumer style applications that can scale. Um, and like, yeah, it's tough. Like I think for a lot of L2s because they're very tech first. They're not so much like product, or like user experience first. So they're very much thinking, of like scaling the tech, right? The tech stack, making the tech stack better. And then, yeah, builders will come. But I think the landscape's changed a lot. And as an L2, like your job is to bring great applications or great builders and great applications to your ecosystem, right? It's like when you start a city, you need to bring great people, great businesses, great restaurants, all this stuff to your city, and then more people will come and visit, right? Whereas if you just focus on like making the roads really good, uh, people might drive through it once, be like, "Oh, that was cool," but they're probably not going to hang around.
Right.
Um, so I think, yeah, we've kind of managed like to really focus in on like this intersection of two interesting like areas with like a lot of design space for new products, which is DeFi and AI. And so, yeah, when we speak to builders, like our goal is to make Mode the best chain for builders who want to build at the intersection of DeFi and AI. Like we will support you, we will help you find liquidity, we will help you test, we will help you like with whatever you need. And so it becomes like a lot easier to onboard builders because we have a very clear vision. We're like, we want Mode to be the chain where like agents are doing all the transactions. We have loads of great protocols, and bringing more agents will bring more users to those protocols. So that's like what we're doing. And so builders very quickly can be like, okay, cool, I'm in, or like, actually, I'm building something more like social. It's like, okay, maybe build that on another chain.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely been like, I think a lot of L2s are still like having this soul searching mission. They're trying to figure out like what direction should they go. And it's also hard because as an L2, there's literally like 50 different directions. You know, you can be
Right.
enterprise, you can be, I mean, there's an L2 for everything now. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, the tech has become increasingly commoditized, right? So you talk about this idea of like, uh, you know, the L2 as a city or something, and the roads, and now it's like everyone has great roads and great infrastructure and good traffic lights, and so it's hard to compete on that vertical, even though it feels like a lot of L2s are still trying to compete on the tech stack. Meanwhile,
Hmm.
you can launch a one-click roll-up, and it's kind of it's hard to justify that, like, just on the basis of tech, you can
Hmm.
compete as a generalist chain. So I think
Yeah,
taking that strong opinion is a good direction for you guys.
absolutely. I think, yeah, we're going to see like a lot of really high performance chains come. And I think they will the ones that will succeed are the ones who have like net new applications that work on those chains but don't work in other places. And we've seen this with like L1s. Um, we've seen this, yeah, multiple times. But yeah, it's really about like now, like, what are you trying to focus on as a chain? And like, what builders are you supporting and what applications, what direction do you want to go? Uh, and yeah, what end users are you trying to like make happy at the end of the day? Like, Mode's users are all like heavily into DeFi. Um, and now they're very much into like, yeah, this kind of agentic trend as well. So yeah, this was kind of a good fit for us.
Well, one thing about users too that I think is interesting, and it's a strong perspective to take at this point in time, but you guys really look at agents as part of the user base as well. And
Hmm.
just kind of making that shift to like, oh, these agents are users of my product as well. They're not just like, platforms or projects built on my chain, but they actually can be users of my chain, is a bit abstract probably to like the average normie, but you guys are very convicted in this idea of like AI agents eating the world. How did you develop that kind of thesis, and how are you building for AI agents?
I think if we look at like what's happening in Web 2, we see like AI is eating everything, right? Like AI is eating software. AI is eating just every kind of vertical. So it kind of felt natural that that's going to happen in crypto. And when I think about like, if you break down like individual tasks that you do in DeFi, um, it might be something like staking. It might be adding collateral to a lending protocol, borrowing against it, managing your positions, managing an LP position. These are all things that like can be automated. Some of them are very easy to automate. Some of them are a bit more complex, and require like lots of different pieces of data to be fed in to like a model. And that's where agents come in, right? Like agents enable you as a user to kind of outsource a lot of like, uh, what you're doing, on chain to an agent for it to run, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, manage positions like much more effectively than us as humans can do. So for me, it always felt like it was kind of obvious that like I'd much rather tell an agent like I want to leverage an ETH position on this lending protocol, and the agent would go and do that and manage that and like unwind, and you can just tell the agent unwind the position if ETH drops below this amount and know that like that's going to happen. That's pretty cool. We also saw like a lot of people, a lot of early mode users, they didn't really optimize what they were doing on chain, right? There was a lot of stuff they were doing which was like, yeah, just not optimized at all. And they would have done a lot better or earned more if they, yeah, had an agent running like a fairly simple strategy, like nothing even like totally complex. Um, so there's a lot of space for agents to come in and, yeah, just essentially do better than like 80, 90% of people. Like the reality is like 80, 90% of people on chain aren't very good, right? There's 10, 20% who are like power users and doing extremely well in DeFi, but the majority of people aren't. And so they can definitely benefit from agents just running their stuff for them, right? And yeah, I keep saying this, it's like it's not like an agent is suddenly going to outperform like the best hedge fund, right? At like trading. But it probably will do better than like most people. And that's like a pretty good start. It's like, when ChatGPT launched, it wasn't better than like the best writers at all. It was like kind of okay.
Hmm.
But like over time, it's got increasingly better and better. And now it's like a really, really good writer. Like it's definitely better than me.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You kind of open the door for like maybe an AI staking derivative or something where it's like
Hmm.
AI ETH, right? And it's like
Hmm.
optimizing ETH, and it's in a more active way, but we can kind of like trust within this parameters that it can and manage capital or something. Like that's an interesting vertical to go after. So you guys are doing a couple interesting things. Not only, are you working for this agentic economy, but you guys have other kind of AI focuses as well. One of these is Mode is a bit tensor subnet.
Hmm.
Can you talk to me about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we were digging more and more into agents, we started like to think about like the type of data that these agents need to perform tasks effectively, right? And we found like that there wasn't much good forecasting data, especially when you want to do a task like set an LP range. So you want to be an LP on like a uni V3 or concentrated liquidity position. And you essentially need to set a range you think that this asset will trade in. You add your liquidity, you start collecting fees. Like the tighter the range, the more fees you get. So this is like a pretty common problem, right? And you can't really be an effective LP without forecasting what you think ranges are going to be and then dynamically adjusting those ranges. And so one of our advisors, he's very much into like data science competitions. We actually did some together back in the day, and we thought about designing like this competition for people to submit like synthetic data, so like simulations, Monte Carlo simulations of future potential prices. And you essentially look at these and you can build like a probabilistic model of like, okay, there's like a 20% chance that Bitcoin's going to drop below like 90K, but there's also like a 30% chance it could go over 100K in the next like 24 hours, right? So it's kind of like modeling volatility. And we started to investigate like how we build this. We looked at BitTensor, realized it was like the perfect platform. So yeah, we launched this subnet on testnet called Synth. And yeah, essentially the output of the subnet is like 100 potential paths for a price. So the price Bitcoin is 100 potential paths, like simulated paths. And this is really good for agents to train on, and start to build like probabilistic models. So like you'll be able to answer the question, like what's the probability Bitcoin trades below like 50K in the next 24 hours? The subnet will be able to give you an answer. Like, there's a 1% chance according to these simulations. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like not about price forecasting specifically. It's about like volatility and yeah, future price distribution forecasting. So yeah, the idea is that this will power the agents on Mode, make them super smart, and yeah, everyone will be like, okay, let's build our agents on Mode because we have these awesome data sets.
Right. Um, and an interesting dynamic that we're kind of seeing in the space is like, despite Mode, for example, having all of the
Hmm.
tooling and being very well set up to host and launch AI agents, we're still seeing most momentum in this kind of like Solana based duopoly.
Hmm.
Um, do you see that paradigm breaking? Why do you think people continue to deploy on one of those platforms despite Mode potentially having better tooling? How can you break this dynamic?
Yeah, I think like Solana and Base are both phenomenal ecosystems, and they're winning and they'll continue to win because they're extremely aggressive um, in like pushing builders to build great stuff, right? And supporting builders. Um, it's like, yeah, with Mode, we have like a very specific type of builder we're trying to support, and we're giving them like everything within our ecosystem. So like, I think we can have a lot of net new applications that will launch on Mode. Like we've got a lot of net new stuff coming up. I think it's going to be like we're always going to have to compete with Solana and Base. Like everyone has to compete with Solana and Base. So it's about like seeing what battles we can fight and then doing a really good job at like supporting builders to build awesome stuff. Like we know the Base team well. Like we're in this like super chain with them. It's part of like, the Optimism super chain,
Mm-hmm.
and they're super helpful. I think Solana's like, yeah, a really incredible ecosystem. There's a lot we're learning from a lot of builders over there too. But we've also seen like a lot of collaboration. So we did a hackathon recently with AI16Z as like one of the partners.
Right.
A lot of the stuff they've built is available on Mode via like an integration with an SDK called Goat. So like we're also seeing like people move across chains right now. And if like the idea of AI abstracting everything, like abstracting what chain you're on, if that like comes to fruition, then yeah, we could expect people to like deploy stuff on Mode, or ask like a Mode interface, like, hey, swap from here to here, and that will all happen like on other chains as well.
Hmm. In that universe where you kind of like abstract away chain entirely, how can
Hmm.
mode stay competitive? If we're kind of like not even looking at the layer itself,
Yeah.
or it's incredibly frictionless to deploy across whatever L2 or rollup or L1. How does that change the kind of like chain landscape?
Yeah, I think that we then like move towards like applications and interfaces being the moat. So can you build a really awesome experience for users? So they keep coming back to you as like the homepage, right? Like the home, if we create like we've built this mode terminal we're going to release soon. It's like a chat interface,
Hmm.
that enables you to do tasks on chain. Like you ask it to swap USDC for ETH and it will do it for you. Um, if we can like make mode the home page, the place you go to do these transactions, the place you go to manage assets, then I think it's definitely possible. I think we are like, yeah, 3 to 6 months out from seeing like really nice abstraction, especially across EVM, it's possible now. But if we're thinking across like Solana, across other L1s, there's definitely a lot more work to be done.
Hmm.
But yeah, we're working with a lot of protocols building like in different intense layers. Um, so yeah, you essentially can deposit into mode and your assets will be available on other chains. But
Right. So
yeah,
it's kind of about making a home for assets and
hmm
making it incredibly user friendly to use the chain.
absolutely. And yeah, creating a place that people want to come. Like we built an iOS app internally. It's like a proof of concept. We think that could be one route. Um, but yeah, I guess it's like the same, like some people just go to Binance to do everything. Some people go to OKX wallet to do everything, right?
Hmm.
It's like if you can own the relationship with the customer, with the user, um, that's like a pretty good moat to have. But yeah, it's definitely hard to build. And I
Right.
think compared to other L2s, I think Mode has a pretty good chance. Like Mode is already kind of like a product. Like we have like a dashboard with all the DeFi apps. We have an agent app store. You can like go through the agents, check them all out. So yeah.
Excellent. Um, One thing that you guys have also kind of put a lot of focus on is ecosystem building, both with the hackathon and the accelerator. Tell me
Hmm.
what I think the hackathon was last month, if I'm right.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Tell me about the hackathon. How did that go, and what exciting things did you see there?
It was pretty cool. Like, so the cool thing was we're working with, yeah, Crossmint, who have this Goat SDK, and then AI16Z
Hmm.
and their Elisa OS, right? So this basically enables people to build agents that will have like loads of different skills. And the way that, um, the reason why Elisa is so powerful is like people can just continue to add integrations to it, right? So like to Elisa OS. So
Right.
like part of the hackathon was like loads of people just building integrations across all the Mode apps. So it was like, okay, now, um, via like now we've built an agent that can like do like user lending protocols like Ionic on Mode really easily. Someone then built an agent for like swapping. And once these integrations had been built, they're all open source, so anyone can use them. So people can continue to build like loads of different agents that do loads of different things. So this is kind of the reason why like, yeah, Elisa OS and these types of SDKs are so powerful because they kind of give builders like infinite tools to build agents with. So you can easily add like a Twitter integration. You can easily add like, yeah, a trading integration. You can easily add like a data integration component. It's really cool. And yeah, it went well. We had like, I think around like 200, 100 and something submissions.
Wow.
Now we have Agent School kicking off, which is like more focused on helping builders who want to launch agents. They have an idea. They might need help with like product design, go to market. This is what Agent School's for. This is kicking off like next week. And yeah, the goal is to get people, people building agents in 3 weeks and like shipping a live agent.
Phenomenal. How do you kind of source talent? Like obviously every L1, L2, a lot of apps now are trying to get people to build. They're trying to be platforms to build on top of. I mean, AI16Z is a perfect example. How do you source that talent?
I think like there's no right or wrong way, to be honest. Like you just have to do everything. You find people everywhere. It's crazy. Like I think this is also because the way people get into crypto is so varied. Like some people discover it on Reddit, others on YouTube, others
Mm,
like might watch one of your videos that gets recommended by a friend, like, and then they kind of dig into like crypto, go down the rabbit hole, maybe start contributing to some project, and then they come across Mode or they publish something online, like they tweet something out, you message them, hey, this is cool, and then it kind of goes from there. But yeah, it's kind of hard to consistently find like talented devs, but um, yeah, I think that like this idea of building in public and like people just building small like proof of concepts and like putting them on Twitter is super powerful because it's like such a good discovery mechanism, right? Like I'm sure as you know, like just putting stuff out into the world means you get a load back, right? Just like
right.
thoughts, ideas. So the best thing devs can do is just like ship stuff, just publish stuff, even if they think it's not that cool. Just keep getting the habit of like, tweeting stuff out that they've built. And yeah, people will get in contact with them and try and hire them, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think a lot about this idea of like saturation, where I'm trying to, get for the podcast, for example, I'm trying to
Hmm.
get as much content out across as many platforms as possible, just to increase the kind of like probability
Hmm.
that I'm able to kind of like reach out across the internet and
Yeah.
get in front of someone. And I think for startups, it can be a healthy framework. I also think in crypto, a lot of these platforms, they might have a high valuation, right? Their token might be
Hmm.
worth a lot, and they view themselves as permissionless architecture, so they kind of say, okay, we'll
Hmm.
just build the tech and we'll wait for the people to come. And they try to justify that because of size and things like that, but it really doesn't work. And everyone, I think, every L2, L1, and a lot of these like apps as platforms need people in the trenches, kind of like sourcing this
Hmm.
talent
Hmm.
and creating these communities. Because if they kind of take even a little step back and try to let the things happen organically, there's too much attention, there's too much competition for that attention, and it becomes really, really
Yeah.
hard to compete. What do you guys think you do culturally, that separates you from the rest of the crypto world? Like, how do you think about culture?
I think, I think our culture's been formed by like the price action and like
Hmm.
the relative performance of Mode not being good for a while. So essentially like the people that came just to farm rewards and like essentially like LARPed that they were here for the product, but they
Right.
weren't. They were just there for the gains. And then when there weren't obvious gains, they left. Whereas the ones who like stuck through have like kind of been with us this whole time. And like now we have a really strong culture. Um, we have like a couple of Telegram groups that are gated if you hold mode tokens or you've like locked your mode and hold VE mode tokens. You can access these groups. They're super active. Everyone's like supporting each other. All the builders are in there. Um, so I would say like the culture's like it's still super DeFi focused. It's fairly builder focused. Now we've been doing like more bit tensor stuff. Like we've been working like on kind of like this more data side as well. We've got like much more like smart data people in the community. Um, but yeah, I think the general theme is just like ship stuff, and we'll support you. Like if someone comes to us now, I've got an idea, it's going to take like 6 months to build. It's generally like probably not for us. It's probably,
Mm.
yeah, not going to fit. Whereas if someone's like, hey, I've got an idea, I want to launch an MVP in a week. We're like, cool, we'll get you like a couple thousand people to test it. We'll support you if you need like liquidity. Um, we'll try and help you scale. Like yeah. So
Yeah, and it seems like it's
yeah,
increasingly hard to justify shipping something in 6 months, right?
yeah.
Like teams are demonstrating, no, you can ship things like if not every week or if not every day, every week, right? It's
Hmm.
easy, the bar is lower, and there are more tools to work more and more quickly. So that's something I look for when I talk to teams is like, oh yeah, well we have an announcement in July, and it's like,
Yeah,
dude, you realize you can like if you go grind right now, you can ship this thing on Friday, you know?
yeah, for real. I mean, it's kind of always been the case in startups, right? It was always like just ship an MVP, like just get something out like into users' hands. And I think it's also like good for founders because when they do that, they kind of change. When they have customers, they like change from like the idea of building a product to like the reality, which is very different. And when they have users like messaging them like, hey, I want this, it's like they're not then thinking of like what to build. It's like people are telling them what to build. And that's like super powerful, right? Because then you're
Mm,
like getting close to product market fit. So yeah, I agree. And with all this, like these new tools to help you build stuff, people are like using Vercel and Cursor and Bolt to like ship MVPs of stuff in like, yeah, like days now. So it's
right.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
people
it's
got to
pretty
be
wild.
quick.
Yeah, I've looked at like I've played a little with Cursor and Replit, um, and I'm not technical at all, but I've built some things that I never thought would be within my grasp. Uh, Yeah, and my mom always says like, "Hey, this is like one of her catchphrases. She says, "Hey, let's just get the data." Like
Hmm.
and in any case, she says, well, it doesn't hurt to have more data." And I think that's a good lesson for founders too is, gather the data, right? And in a lot of the ways that looks like shipping things and
Hmm.
even if you're not 100% certain it's going to be a vein you end up following or something that ends up working 100%, it's going to be a way to kind of source more data, and it's better to exist
Yeah.
there than in this conceptual space where you're like, oh well, we don't know if we're going to do this, and we're still building the product and we want to iterate and blah blah. So that's interesting. You guys are also working on an accelerator with an approaching demo day. Anything exciting ongoing there? Any teams you want to highlight?
Yeah. Inference Labs, awesome team building within they built BitTensor Subnet and have a load of other products tools. Um, then Almanac, a really, really smart team of like essentially quants who are
Hmm,
building out like very smart financial agents.
right.
Um, those two teams definitely to watch. Within the mode ecosystem, I definitely say like, yeah, watch Giza. They built this agent called Armor, has like, yeah, a couple few $100,000 that it's managing um, with on stablecoin yield. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, Amplify is another one from the accelerator. They initially built like a BTC yield agent, so it earns yields on BTC by using
Right.
it across different ecosystem apps on Mode. Yeah, there's loads. I mean, we're publishing everything on Twitter. Demo days can be streamed. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that financial kind of management agent is a super unexplored space, and I think people
Hmm.
realize it's going to be important, but it's in the early days, so it's hard to justify kind of deploying capital to something so experimental. But it's very clear that like those winners are going to be very, very powerful and very big kind of consumer products, consumer facing products. Um, I guess one thing that might be like a rebuttal against all everything you guys are doing at Mode is like, are
Hmm.
these guys narrative chasers, right? Like DeFi when DeFi is hot, restaking when restaking is hot, AI when AI is hot. Who's not to say that like, consumer something is the next big thing, and you guys chase that bandwagon? Are you guys bandwagoners, or like through these evolutions, how can you justify kind of this rapid iteration?
So I think there's two things. Firstly, the block, I was speaking to the block like a year ago, just
Hmm.
before we launched the mainnet, and they're like, what are you focused on? I was like, DeFi innovation, we're interested in like yield bearing assets, building open source tech. I actually said agents back then. That was like a year ago, before
Uh-huh.
agents were hot. So I got it in writing, that we were going to focus on agents from the early days. We just never had time initially. Um, but I think also like a big part of being like a successful crypto protocol is about adapting to like where you think the market is going and building for like what the market will need in the future, right? And I think like a good example of a team which did this really well is Polygon, right? So Polygon started as like a scaling solution. They built like multiple different scaling solutions. They had like a POS chain, they had like another chain, and like they essentially saw like pretty early that DeFi and Ethereum would need a way to scale. So like they built a whole solution around this like new scalable DeFi stack. And that enabled Polygon to go from like a small project to a huge project very quickly. And then it was like, okay, now they're going to work with like Nike and Starbucks and like integrate their solutions into like the biggest companies in the world. And people look at Polygon now and it's like, oh, Polygon's like a multi-billion-dollar protocol, like has loads of incredible apps, all these huge partnerships. But like their story was very much like they just kept building and kept executing really, really well. And they definitely like pivoted multiple times from like the exact focus area, but like that enabled them to just build better stuff, acquire more users, get more adoption of their tech, and yeah, become like extremely successful. So I think that like you have to have like an overall vision. Like our overall vision is like, how do we scale DeFi, make it easier? And then you have to like think of like, yeah, what can you build that people are interested in and want to use and want to try? So like you've definitely got to, yeah, be adaptable as well.
Right, kind of like maintain that agility.
Mm-hmm.
And then another bit of pushback. There seems to be, I don't think this at all, and I actually find it increasingly hard to justify this opinion. But there is this kind of vocal minority in crypto that says all of AI in crypto is kind of like vapor. Like I said, I don't really believe this, and I think if you just look at the products, you see like, no, this is not vapor. But what would you say to kind of like convert that person who's a little skeptical about the intersection of AI and crypto?
I think like it's really, really hard to say like everything's vapor, or everything's not vapor, right? Because some stuff definitely is vapor and it's just like smart automation, right? So it's like, at what point does it become AI? Like people who say stuff is sentient or like we're building sentient AI, I mean, that's realistically not going to happen from like a random blockchain project, right? Like
Yeah.
that's going to be like OpenAI or one of the big dogs. Like that's not an argument to have. But
Right.
like, and like there's many different ways like AI can be used within crypto, within DeFi, right? So you can use like different types of machine learning models. You can verify them with like zkML to know like what the agent's doing is actually like verifiable. There's teams like Sturdy who have built an awesome product, like a yield product, and they have a bit tensor subnet, which is running like a portfolio. Uh, Essentially, it's a portfolio management like data set that's being trained on, being worked on by hundreds of miners. It's like a machine learning problem they've solved essentially for portfolio management. They integrate that into their vaults. And so, yeah, that's totally like a legit use case of AI. We see like chat based front ends that like, yeah, use LLMs to like do stuff. That kind of is AI, but it's not really like on chain. So I think we're going to see like more and more things emerge which actually do like stuff on chain and like verify the actions on chain, whether that's using TEEs, whether it's using zkML. But that's kind of important that like to know something's not vaporware is to know that the actions that agents are taking is verifiable. And yeah, a lot of great work's been doing like happening on that. So yeah, I think some stuff like the early meta with like Goat, which was like a meme coin, which essentially was like an LLM tied to a Twitter account with a wallet that was like kind of unconnected. And it was just tweeting random shit, but kind of interesting stuff. And that's like what some people think agents is. Like that meta's kind of done. We kind of moved past the meme side, and now it's like real like on-chain stuff that like can be verified. That's like definitely like legit, and yeah, hundreds of
Right.
teams are building good stuff in that area.
Well, I remember it was actually pretty quick. It was maybe like 1 or 2 weeks that you could launch just an agent with a Twitter account and get
Hmm.
any level of attention, and
Yeah,
quickly, like Pump Fund, stopped even bonding those projects. It
yeah,
just like isn't enough anymore. You have to have your own angle and your own tech. Um,
yeah.
so I think the market is probably getting it right in this case.
Hmm.
And like the goat to infra pipeline was an important one, and it was kind of like a bridge for memes to
Hmm.
lead into AI. And I think
Hmm.
AI is like the salvation of those of us who didn't care that much for memes, because it was this kind of like seamless pivot somehow, right? Like goat and
Yeah,
Fartcoin led into this like AI infrastructure that was had a lot more kind of feels like it
yeah,
has a lot more fundamental weight, and
yeah,
I'm grateful for that moment personally.
yeah, yeah. Like it was like they like set up, they like grabbed the attention for everyone to like dig into,
Right.
and everyone started digging into stuff, and then like projects like virtuals that had been shipping for a long time. I think they'd been live for like, yeah, like 9 months, nearly 1 year. People like, oh wow, these guys are actually doing incredible stuff. Um, and then yeah, that started off this whole new wave. And like
Hmm.
the AI 16Z guys, it was like, oh wow, they've actually built like this awesome framework. It's like super popular on GitHub, and people started looking for the utility. So yeah, it was cool to see. Meme coins going crazy last year was definitely, yeah, interesting.
It was a totally wild time, but yeah, I guess that meta has changed a bit. Cool. The one thing I do want to touch on, which maybe is tangentially or not quite AI related, is VE mode, and it seems like that was like a very important inflection point for you guys as well. You want to touch
Hmm.
on that a little bit?
Yeah, so essentially like designing a token, like we didn't have like designing a token is tough, right? Because governance tokens should govern.
Hmm.
Um, so you distribute them to users, but then users want more things to do with them, right? Some people want to stake them, some people want to use them as like payment to pay for things on chain. Like there's hundreds of possible ways you can bake in utility to a token. And we looked at it from the perspective of like we have like we want to keep rewarding the ecosystem and keep incentivizing the ecosystem. Previously, we did that through like this points product, this point system we built. Um, and I really like the way that Velodrome and some other protocols have like this vote escrow uh, approach, which is essentially where you lock tokens and then you can vote for different protocols to get rewards. Okay, it's like a big reward pool, and all the users lock their mode. They vote where the rewards for the ecosystem go. And we had this OP grant, which was to be used for incentives. So we decided to put that into this VE mode pool. And it was super successful. Like a load of people locked their mode. They're all earning like a pretty good APY on locking their mode. And then they vote for different projects in the ecosystem. And some of those projects have started bribing users, saying, hey, vote for us and we'll give you like some USDC or some kickback. So it's created like this really cool dynamic where like the token has like a very strong purpose. And now like we're going to see in season 4, we're going to see agents like directing votes to themselves.
Oh,
So
wow,
there'll be
that's an
governance
interesting dynamic.
agents.
Yeah, like the
So yeah,
political agents.
yeah,
That's cool.
exactly. And we've like, yeah, we've baked in the bribe mechanism more, so it's much more easy uh, for protocols to bribe and say like, hey, vote for us, and for users to then collect those bribes.
Right.
So it's cool. It's a cool dynamic, and it gave a lot of like, it was something we needed to fix. We needed to bring more utility, and the community like wanted more utility, so we all kind of jammed on that. And we worked with Aragon on this product, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So
And
super
it's
happy.
really something you guys innovated on, as far as kind of like L2 tokenomics. I think pretty much everything out there is relatively vanilla, and you guys
Yeah.
changed that dynamic quite a bit. Cool. The last question I have for you is kind of like the ultimate ambition for Mode. And you've
Hmm.
touched on it a little bit, right? You talk about this world of, creating DeFi, making DeFi more accessible and building for the agentic economy. But but in your own words, describe, in 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, the most optimistic vision for Mode. What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say like being one of like the leading L2s, billions of dollars on chain, being managed by agents, different types of apps, interfaces that users can go to. So like an iOS app where they can just say, hey, I want you to move my USDC into ETH. An agent does it. Says, hey, I want to earn some yield on this new protocol that's just launched on Node. The agent goes and does it. It's like this multi-agent system or like agentic economy, where it's kind of being orchestrated by the Mode token holders. That's how I see it. So yeah, I mean, I think like 6 months ago, it seemed like that was like a very like far away idea, but now it
Hmm.
seems like it could become reality. So yeah, no more sleep for the next 12 months. Just keep shipping.
Phenomenal. Awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Anything people can check out? Where can they find you? Can they find Mode?
Yeah, Mode Network Twitter is definitely like just at Mode Network, and then my Twitter is at J Ross Treacher. Um, yeah, check out what we're building. It's going to be a fun year.
I'm super excited, and I'm seeing a lot of shipping coming in your guys' future. So definitely want to check out the agent app store and a couple of the things on your platform. So you got me hyped as well. Thanks so much
Awesome.
for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.